Good afternoon. We are here with Life on Purpose Live. We are so excited. We are talking about my favorite topic today, purpose. And we have author Kelly Needham. She's got a book coming out next week. This is a big deal. We're so
Mhm.
excited for you. And it's called Purpose Fooled. So, Kelly, welcome.
Thanks so much, Beth, for having me. I'm glad to be here with you.
I'm so glad to have you. Of course, this topic is a big topic because so many people struggle with the idea of purpose and what is my life all about. So, tell me about the title, Purpose Fooled.
Well, I think there's a lot being said out there right now about purpose in the Christian space and in the secular space. And I think a lot of it is misleading and leads us into places of burnout and exhaustion and doesn't account for many of life's transitions. And so I think sometimes I found myself being fooled into misplacing my purpose. And so that's really where the idea for the title came from, to try and bring some clarity to what really were we made for.
So let's talk about that and dig a little deeper because you talk about how chasing your dreams and going after your calling and doing all those things that we're supposed to be doing will never be enough. So
Mhm.
tell me about that statement.
Yeah. Well, it's a very I know that's a challenging statement to hear in our current culture, but the sentiment behind it is this: even if you got everything you wanted, even if you achieved every dream, even if you climbed every mountain of achievement you ever aspired to, it wouldn't be enough. The book of Ecclesiastes testifies to that you can accomplish it all, do it all, achieve it all, get to the top of the mountain. The writer of Ecclesiastes does that and says there's nothing here. That ultimately purpose cannot be found outside of just the person of God. And if we seek it anywhere else, we will be disappointed. That doesn't mean it's wrong to do things, to take risks, and to use everything at our disposal for the kingdom of God. But in the end, if we're trying to find some sense of meaning in those things, it's not, we're always going to need a new height to climb, a new level
Yeah,
to get to be okay.
yeah. So let's clarify that purpose is not something to be found, correct?
Yeah, it's not something we need to discover, I don't think.
So, what does that mean to someone who they think, well, wait a minute, I'm trying to do what I think God called me to do. He called me to write a book. He called me to be a mom. He called me, and you have 5 kids, so you
Yeah.
know about this. And
Mm.
so, we think we're pursuing that which we believe God has called us to. Where are the misperceptions usually hiding?
Yeah. Um, I think they're hiding in those verbs, those activities. As soon as we attach our sense of purpose, why we were made, to something we do, we're always going to be enslaved to those things. So, writing, I love writing. I think that God has uniquely wired me to be able to do that well. He has set certain writing assignments before me to do. But if I think my purpose is to write, to be an author, then anything that gets in the way of that becomes a burden. When
Mm.
2020 happened, I actually set out to write this book in the beginning of 2020. And then my young children came home to distance learn. And it was like, well, that project went out the window because I've
Oh,
got a
yeah.
new set of tasks in front of me. And if my
Hmm.
purpose is to be an author, then 2020 was a death sentence to me. But my purpose is not writing. My purpose is the Lord. And He set before me writing in some years. And in 2020, it was not that. But my life doesn't have to be drained of meaning when I don't get to do the tasks that I feel uniquely gifted at. Everybody has seasons of doing tasks that they don't like, that might not be their favorite, might not be what you're good at, but it's what God has set before you in this season to do. And it can be just as purposeful if you live for who you were made for, not for the task in front of you.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because, my book is Life on Purpose. And I've interviewed people for a long time. And so I kind of shared my story intertwined with that. But since then, I've come up with this new idea and I'm working on a second book, but it's all about the identity because if you know who you
Mhm.
are, you'll never doubt what to do next. What do you think about that statement?
Yeah. If I believe that if you know who you are, then you know what's in front of you to do. And I think the scriptures are clear that who we are first is image bearers. We were made for God. And then in Christ, we become his children. If he is who I live for, he's given me marching orders, very plain as day, right? First and foremost, love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, and mind and strength. That's a lot of work all your
Mhm.
heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength, and then love your neighbors yourself. It's like, regardless of the other small decisions that get made around that, I know that when I wake up, my first job is to connect with God, to be with him. And as a mom of 5, that takes a lot of work and energy and creativity to make space for that. But that's what he has told me to do. And then I'm called to love my neighbors myself. And those little people around me are my little neighbors to love. And my physical neighbors who live next to me, or anyone else God sets before me. And so I've got a whole lot of work set in front of me, good work to do, just by knowing whose I am and who I live for. That answers a lot of those big questions for me.
Well, so and let's talk about what that looks like on a daily basis, because you have 5 kids, you have a husband, you're running your home,
Yes.
you're an author, you have things you do outside the home. What do you have to say no to on a regular basis in order to say yes to God and his pursuit
Mhm.
of you and that relationship with him? You have
Yeah.
to say no to a lot of things, right?
To say no to a lot of things. No one can do all the things.
Yeah.
You would not need sleep. I don't know who you are, but, I have to say no to my house being as clean as I would prefer it to be a lot of the time
Mhm.
in this season. My kids are young, so for me to sit with Jesus in the morning usually means it's cluttered and the dishes aren't done all the time, or the laundry just has to sit an extra day in the dryer before I can get to it, if I'm going to meet with Jesus. But it has also meant, like, writing. I had interest to write this book, but I did not feel good about pursuing it without hiring some help and saying no to some other tasks, because I knew if I take on a writing project and I don't offload anything, I will lose a healthy relationship with God. I know it. I can't do it all. I need space for
Mhm.
that. And so, as we even prayed about, Lord, is this a project you would have for this year? The ask of him was, Lord, provide help. And he did. He provided an assistant and provided funding for that assistant. And I offloaded a lot of other tasks that are not my mothering or my oversight of my house, but all sorts of administrative details that I have always overseen in my life for my husband, for other small things. And that made space to add anything new in. But I'm always asking that question. If I'm going to add something new in, what needs to go away? And if nothing can go away, maybe it's not yet that I need to add that new thing in. Maybe that's for an
Mhm.
upcoming season.
Mhm.
But I know my marching orders from the one I've made for. I need to have space
Mhm.
for him and space to love those who are right next to me. And if I can't do that, then something's wrong.
Well, and I think that's well said. And I often say, and I took this from someone else, but a no isn't a no forever. It's just a
That's
no
right.
for now.
That's right.
And you don't have to say no. You can say not now.
Mhm.
And I think that's important. So, for people who are struggling with that sense of this is what my life is all about, and God's gifted me with these skills and these talents, um, how do you go back to that core relationship? I mean, you're busy, you got stuff going on, you don't have a whole lot of time. I mean, maybe you're past the age of childbearing, and I know you have 5 kids, and your audience is a lot of moms and parents. What do you say to someone? I'm over here, I'm busy. Maybe I need to
Yeah.
get off of some of this and go back to that. How important is that to edit the life part and the commitments?
Yeah. I don't know if I've had clarity to even make those decisions without a consistent pattern
Uh,
of meeting with Jesus.
mm,
I just don't make wise decisions when that's not happening. But when I've been too busy, it is like a detox to slow down. When you
it is.
start to add in that stillness, it is
Hmm.
unnerving. It isn't
Yeah.
comforting at first. It's like it eats at you. You're like, oh, there's so much to do. There's so much to do. So I've really had to fight for that time, to choose to be still and to remind myself this is an offering of worship I'm giving God. And it feels
Hmm.
costly right now. I'm giving him my attention and focus when it feels like 45 other things are demanding it. And it is
Hmm.
a way that I say to him, you are more important. You are worthy. And if I need to walk out and sit on my front porch in the 100-degree weather to be able to focus on him, then I'm going to do that. If I need to get down and sit on the floor in my bedroom because it's the only place my hands can't reach other tasks to do so that I can focus and go, Lord, I'm here for you today, I'm going to do that. It does feel like a detox as you're trying to get that rhythm back in its proper place. But then once it becomes a habit again, we can guard it, protect it. But that recalibration for me is happening in every new season. I feel like about 4 times a year, I have to have a major recalibrate. School starting, I've got that new rhythm comes in. All right, Lord, my game, number one priority in the day is meet with you. Where am I going to do
Mm,
that? How am I going to do that? When am I going to do that? I've got to fight for it. And that is bringing a lot of clarity to me, making further decisions. What's a yes? What's a no? What's a not now?
mhm.
What's a I'm not sure. I need to
Yeah.
ask more questions.
And I think asking the questions are the key thing, and then following through with answers, waiting to hear from God. And, one of the things that impacts, especially, well, my generation as well as your generation, social media.
Yeah.
We've got constant news. I mean, we've got to keep up with what's happening.
Mhm.
Everybody's scared about the world is,
Yeah.
we're falling apart, and there's social media coming at us, and we think families are perfect. So how do you dial down what's in our face all day, every day, and tune that out?
Right.
Because that's a task in and of itself.
It is. And it's a problem. Social media is setting all sorts of images and ideas before us that are taking over our imagination, the things we
Hmm.
mull over throughout the day, and it shapes how we live if we're not careful. But no one can stop thinking about something in isolation. You can't say, don't think about a pink elephant. Immediately you're thinking about the pink elephant, right? It's like that's
Right.
the conundrum. So for me, it has to include the way that I fight against this is a daily drip of Bible in my life. What is God awakened by? When I'm reading Old Testament stories, right? What is he excited about? Who is he drawn toward? As I think about those things, it's giving my mind something different to think about. Or as I read about stories, New and Old Testament, right? I come across Peter, who's looking at John in John chapter 21, saying, well, what about him? What's going to happen with his life? And Jesus says, it doesn't matter what I do with him. You follow me. And then I have this visual. I'll try to put myself in the story. What was that like for Peter to hear that or John to hear that? And here I am sitting with my phone. Lord, what about them? What about them? What about this person? And I imagine him looking at me and saying, no, it doesn't matter what I do with them. You follow me. So the daily input of Bible reading for me is so necessary. Not just because it's like, here's what to do. It's giving my mind a new thing to think about besides just what's presented to me online and on social media. Or when I worry the world is crashing down around me, I can read the book of Judges and go, well, it's been terrible before. And
Yeah.
God was still working good in and through even those terrible moments. That informs me and should inform me more than what I'm seeing online. But again, if I don't give my mind that new information to chew on every day through a steady drip of his word, I'm not going to be able to fight against what's presented to me online. I'll have nothing else to think about but that because I didn't give my
Hmm.
mind anything else.
Right. Right. That's so true. And I like to say that stillness is a learned behavior.
Mhm.
On purpose simply means, a systematic approach to choosing better choices for your life.
Mm,
So, you've learned to still your mind, with which comes from stilling your body.
yes.
So, is part of being purposeful thinking we have to be so busy all the time that if
Mhm.
we're sitting still, we're not productive. Is that a big lie of the enemy?
I think it is. I think that
Hmm.
we are culturally being told subconsciously, subtly, or directly that your doing gets things going.
Hmm. Yeah.
And what we see Jesus say in John 15, right, is apart from me, you can accomplish nothing. You can do nothing. That means there's a lot of really pretty nothing in the world, if that's
Yeah.
true. That the
Yeah.
only thing that is truly something is something done through abiding with Jesus. There's a lot of human accomplishment out there done by people who don't love him, that in the final analysis, we will see in front of his throne, right, that really was missed. It was nothing.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, True, effective, fruitful living comes not from my producing, but from my abiding. Jesus said,
Hmm.
just abide in me and you will
Hmm.
bear fruit. It's a promise. I don't have to
Hmm.
force the fruit to come. If I just stay close to him and I make it my main job to just abide with him, he promises my life will bear fruit. That means even when I'm resting, sitting with him, there's fruit being produced. Maybe I can't measure it. I can't, find a metric for it like I can on social media, but it's a promise he's given me that I can trust in. And I do want an effective life, and I hope we all do. But it does start
Hmm.
with the stillness of staying close to him, remaining with him, abiding with him, which is very opposite of what we're being told even in some Christian spaces.
And so how are you filtering that message down to your kids? You have 5 kids, you're busy. Just
Mhm.
even if you didn't leave the house, you would be
Right.
busy. But
True.
you have activities, you have church. I mean, how are you filtering that as a family? What does this look like? Because you have to prioritize your husband, you have to prioritize
Yes.
your kids. So what does that look like on a day-to-day basis of being able to not get caught in the keep up with the Joneses, so to speak,
Yeah.
but having your family on a process that works for you?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of no's for the family. Like, we said before, there are just extracurriculars our kids are not involved with because my husband's a pastor. And there are things that we're like, we just can't do things that have sports on Sundays because we do a really long, hard day of great ministry and work by the time it's 2 p.m. on Sunday and we need rest. And
Yeah.
our kids need to watch us rest, watch us stop, watch us be still. And that means we can't facilitate all the things they would like to do, all the play dates they'd like to do. Even as a family of 7, one of the things we've told our kids is we can't have a huge birthday party for every kid every year. It's a lot of work, a lot of money. We will celebrate every birthday gets celebrated immensely within the unit of our own family. But, we
Mhm.
only do big parties for like big milestones, 10 and
Mhm.
15 and, all that.
Mhm.
So and they know that. They're like, that's one of the costs, but we try to remind them what that's facilitating for our family is when it's, the end of the day, we can play a board game together. We can read books together. We can just go out on the trampoline together and we can just be present together with one another without always doing. And the only way that sense of presence and stillness can happen in a family is if you say no to a lot of things because there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of
Mhm.
opportunities out there and they're all good things. They're not bad things.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's hard is it's saying no to good things so that you can preserve the best thing, the
Mhm.
irreplaceable thing, which is my kids growing up with a sense of mom and dad were around and available and there, you know?
Mhm.
And that's the better thing. It's hard though. A lot of no's to facilitate that.
Well, and one of the things that you see in culture is the watering down of the word, and you're teaching your kids the word and the
Mm.
framework of what the Bible says. And what do you say to the people who think that's, just culture, signs of the times and things like that? I mean, how important is the word of God? Because it's the one telling you what your purpose is to pursue
Yes.
him and love your neighbors. And so, what do you say to people that are wrestling with the how important is the Bible to the structure of my life and my family?
Yeah. Well, I don't know any other more important text to be spending time in than that one.
Hmm.
And what's so hard is we're being presented with new information every day, all the time. And
Right.
new feels more important than old and familiar. And the Bible is
Hmm.
not changing. And there's a false kind of assumption that because it's not new, that maybe it's not as helpful or not as helpful to right now. I need to figure out what's in my kid's food right now. I'm going
Right.
to research the new information coming out about the things that are in this or in that, or the dangers to this or
Hmm.
to that. The Bible doesn't speak to this particular technology. So, I need to go do over here. And I think, gosh, that is hurting us that we're not more familiar with the timeless truths in God's word. And so it starts with us as parents believing that in action. Am I
Hmm.
actually reading the Bible in a way that my kids see me doing it? Because they will do what they see um, more than what I say. If I just tell
Hmm.
them to read the Bible, that's one thing. But if they watch me every day fight for that time, talk about what I'm learning, that's doing so much more for them. And then inviting them into it as they get older. Hey, read along with me. What are you reading? Let's read it at the dinner table. Let's talk about it together. Um, those things are so important because the Bible is like a set of glasses when your eyes are foggy. As you read
Hmm.
it, it clarifies, oh, now I can see my world clearly. The culture's going crazy about these things, but I've just now put this lens on and I can go, oh, I see things now that I didn't see before. I can make decisions wisely. Um, I can live rightly because of this.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And so if okay, oh, I lost my thought, but then I came back with it. So people are looking at the world and going, "What in the world am I going to do?" I mean, how can I change anything? I'm just a mom, a grandmother, a teacher, a president of a company. I'm just going to leave all that alone, let somebody else fix it. From a purpose standpoint, we are to be solutions to problems, right? God put us all here. I mean, we're His ambassadors. We are to bear fruit. What do we do with that uncomfortable sense of, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, but maybe I should do something.
Yeah. Well, I think we should be doing something every day. There's good works to do in front of us all the time. We see that be kind of the general category that the New Testament gives, that we're to do good works. And the way that the New Testament defines good works is everything from bringing a cold glass of water to someone who's thirsty, to welcoming in a stranger, to, I mean, it's like very simple, ordinary things. But
Mm-hmm.
yet, the way that our Bible understands those things as if they're monumentally important. I mean, you look at Hebrews chapter 11, the hall of faith. If you just go through that and underline the verbs that people did that are highlighted by our God as significant and meaningful, it is, I mean, by and large, it's a lot of basic things, right? Abel offered something to God. He went to church functionally, right? And he's in there by
Mm-hmm.
faith. Abel offered this sacrifice to God. Or we see Abraham, right? He left home. So God
Mm-hmm.
said, leave your home and go somewhere else. And he did. And God sees
Mm-hmm.
that as meaningful. How many of us have moved by just
Mm-hmm.
submission to God's design for a changing of season? Even that,
Mm-hmm.
when done by faith, is monumentally impactful. Or even look at the
Mm-hmm.
book of Esther. Again, we have meaning that we associate with these things because we see their lives after they've happened. We have kind of
Mm-hmm.
that helpful picture of like looking back on it, but they didn't have that. Esther, submits to Mordecai, her father figure, something all of us are called to do. She hosts a dinner party. She has a hard conversation. And they were costly decisions, but it's not like she did anything that you and I probably haven't done. Had a hard conversation, tried to submit to the authorities in our life, hosted people that maybe weren't our favorite people in the world. And yet, when done by faith, those very ordinary, basic things now become utilized by God in ways of advancing His kingdom that we may not know this side of heaven. We might not
That's good.
know the full impact, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not for us to know right now.
Right.
We get to trust that He'll reveal that to us when we're with
Yeah.
Him.
And we have to let go of the outcomes. And I have a great question and your husband is a pastor.
Mhm.
So you're in the midst of the church. And this is the last question. And then I want to talk about your book. What do you wish to hear preached in the pulpits more? The leaders and the influencers talking about more that could encourage others in the body of believers, or perhaps not yet believers.
Yeah. I hope to see an expansion of what we consider noteworthy and exciting.
Mm, that's
There's
good.
a little bit of a narrow focus, right, on like what it means to change the world and what it means to live a meaningful life, or what types of callings feel significant. All of that can feel very narrow. But like, what about the mom who's at home? What about the person who's suffering from cancer and their obedience to God is to live in a season of receiving care and having a kind attitude toward the people they encounter in the medical industry and sharing the gospel with them? Like, that is impactful when done for Christ. So it's not that I think we should dream less and chase things less. I think I would love to see an elevation of all sorts of types of activity, that anything done for God by His empowering and to Him is hugely, wildly impactful in this world, even if we can't measure it all the same. We can measure
Hmm.
a post, a podcast, episode. We can measure a blog post. We can't really measure the conversation we have with the neighbor who moved in next door who doesn't know Jesus. But God has a different measuring stick, and we need to lay ours down and pick up His and go, am I glorifying Him in my activities? And am I walking by faith? If I am, then God's assessment of my day is that was impactful,
Yeah.
that was fruitful, and He can determine how He wants to use that in the forwarding of His kingdom. And man, may He help us to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's well said and, well broken down. And so for anyone who's struggling with the topic of purpose and you wonder, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Tell us what people can get when they order your book on August 1st.
August 1st, it comes out. That's right. I hope that as people read this book, they will feel validated in the deep ache for meaning that they have, because I think it is
Mm,
a God-given longing. I don't think the longing is the problem. So I think that I hope as people read from my own story and what they're reading from the scriptures, that they will feel validated, that that longing is good. It's just often misplaced. And it's directed toward areas that will keep us running and never getting to that place where we feel the satisfaction of that ache. So
yeah,
that will feel validated, but that also have tools in their pockets to look at the life they're in right now, not the one they want to live, but where you are right
yeah.
now, and to
Mhm.
see that it can be a deeply meaningful and purposeful life right now if you would just change your perspective of how you're looking at it. And I
Yeah,
hope it will free people to see that and then to rest a little more than they
yeah,
are, to
yeah.
receive that as a good gift from God in the midst of all of this.
And that's such a welcome message because we get the urge to watch the world just spinning out around us, and then we're called back. You know what? It's okay to just take a breather and sit.
Mhm.
It's just like, okay, that's a really great message. So, Purposeful, author Kelly Needham. It's coming out August 1st. It's a great topic about that ache in your soul for your life to matter, and it's going
Mhm.
to address those things. And so, I wish you well with the book. I think it's a great topic. I love it because it does dig deeper and it goes further into the real meaning behind meaning.
Mhm. Yes. Well, thank you
Yeah,
so much, Beth, for having me. It's been a privilege to chat with you about this really important topic.
you're welcome. It's great to have you. And we'll come back and do this again after the book's been out and maybe talk with some people who have been changed by it. I'd love to hear that perspective as well.
That would be awesome.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.